So I'm really happy to be here to share this amazing adventure I've been on the last 10 years. My talk is called Magic and Hope, and these few reflections are going to be talking about what the relationship between those two might be. It also could be thought of as trying to unpack a sentence in this marvelous book of Bob Neal's. And I'm hoping to illustrate this sentence and maybe with a little bit of luck, maybe even illuminate the sentence. And the sentence is, if magic is anything, it's a gift of hope. In the fall of 2001, exactly 10 years ago this week, I found myself through an amazing constellation of circumstances spending a week doing 15 shows in the refugee camps in Kosovo. And what happened during those shows, during that week, inspired me to start Magicians Without Borders. And in these past 10 years, my wife and I have traveled to over 30 countries, in some of the most war-torn parts of the world, places like Somalia and Sudan and Ethiopia and Bangladesh and Burma. We try to go to all the vacation destinations. And by UN estimates, we've now performed for over 500,000 refugee kids. What happened that week in those camps in Kosovo that moved me to absolutely change my life? To give up a career of 35 years as a college professor, to begin traveling 6 months of the year to really wild and wonderful, but often demanding and difficult and sometimes dangerous parts of the world. I don't know what happened. I mean, in many ways, these moments when we completely change our life have a lot of mystery wrapped around them. But I do know that I saw some things. I saw tens of thousands of people suffering in unbelievable kinds of ways, traumatized, running for their lives. But it's not what I saw that I want to talk about. I want to talk about more how I was seen, or how magic was seen. Because the way in which magic was seen by those refugees moved me to deepen my understanding of magic to levels of meaning and promise and possibility and power that I had never imagined before. And in that transformation in my understanding of magic somehow was a call, a demand almost, that I can't quite understand to change my life. There's a poem by the great German 20th century poet Rainer Maria Rilke. Rilke finds himself in the Louvre in Paris, and he's looking at a sculpture of Apollo. And he describes in his poem his looking, he's looking, describes what he's seeing. And then there's this startling final two lines. And Rilke says, and then you realize that there's no place at all that's not looking at you. You must change your life. That's what happened. I can't quite understand that, but all of a sudden, what I was looking at was looking at me. The first day I was in Kosovo, I was being driven around by this man, Martin. We drive into the first refugee camp, Momen Potok. And Martin says to me, I want to introduce you to this little Roma girl. Her name's Fatima. She's only 6 years old. She appears to know everybody in the camp. And everybody appears to know Fatima. They actually have a nickname for her, the mayor of Momen Potok. She's going to be your guide today. We go over to a hovel of a house, rattle on this piece of corrugated metal, and there appears this beautiful brown, big-eyed Roma face, Fatima. We were together all day. I spoke not a word of Roma or Serbo-Croatian. She spoke no English. And yet, if I needed anything, a table, which is hard to find in a refugee camp, a table, a volunteer, a glass of water, Fatima was all over it. And she was just one of those bright little kids that if I needed something, she knew it. Comes time to leave. Fatima's standing beside me, talking to some Roma women. I turn to say goodbye to Fatima, and she's gone. And I feel terrible that I'm not going to get to say goodbye to her. I pick up my magic suitcase, I walk over to the car, I look in, there is Fatima, flat on the floor, in the back seat, hiding, wanting to run away with the magician. The Roma women come over, they talk to her. Fatima's a good Roma kid. She took her best shot. It didn't work. She smiles, she waves us down the road. About 20 minutes later, we come into a town called Shutka. And if I ever write about this, what Martin said next, it will probably be a title of the chapter. He said, nothing happens in Shutka. Let's do a magic show for these people. It's not really a refugee camp, but it's swollen with refugees, he said. And life is miserable in Shutka. They need some magic in Shutka. So we go into the town square, find some cardboard boxes, set them up, put a tablecloth over top, and within, 5 minutes, there were 350 people. Because nothing happens in Shutka. I was what was happening, apparently, in Shutka. So the show goes well. The crowd disperses. And except for a handful of Roma men standing there, and this wonderful old Roma woman with a wild head wrap, gold teeth, mirrors all over her dress. And she comes up to me with a 5 Macedonian gold coin. She drops it in my hand. Now, she had seen me multiply sponge balls, flowers. She apparently wanted to see if my magic had any market value. She points to it, and probably with 10 of her English words, she said, "Make more money." So I put it in my hand. I get some magic dust. I sprinkle it on there. And I squeeze the coin, and there is a chunk of gold. And I offer it to her, and she smiles, mildly amused. Clearly says, more money. So I take the gold, I put it in my hand, I get the dust, sprinkle on it, squeeze the gold, and there is a 50 Macedonian gold coin, 10 times what she had given me. We're only talking 80 cents here. She was totally thrilled. I put it in her hand. She smiles, walks away. Instantly, simultaneously, 2 of these Roma men say, "Make us visas to America." I laughed, just like you. They were totally serious. There was no doubt. They had just seen money multiply tenfold. Surely I could pull a visa out of these. We go on to some other camps that day. I'm back in Skopje that night, thinking about my first day in a refugee camp. I've been in hundreds of refugee camps since then. This was my first day. And I'm writing in my journal, thinking, Fatima sees magic. And she wants to run away. She thinks she can escape from Roman Potok. The men in Shutka see magic. It somehow awakens something, some hope, maybe a dream that they can go to America and realize those dreams. And then I thought of another refugee who fled the pogroms in Hungary in the late 19th century, Eric Weiss. Mm-hmm. We know him as Harry Houdini. And Houdini once said that sometimes when I do magic in certain circumstances, when I escape from my impossible situation, I think I inspire hope in people that they can escape from their impossible situation. I thought, that's what I saw today. I saw that magic, I learned two things that day. I wrote in my journal that night. That in certain circumstances, magic not only amazes and amuses, but it has the power to inspire hope that the impossible might be possible. And I also learned that magic is a language. I never kind of thought that. I knew no Roma, no Serbo-Croatian. They knew no English, and yet we all spoke magic. The grammar of things appearing, things disappearing, things changing. My life changed that day. It would never be the same. And I didn't know it, but my life would never be the same. There's a poem by Juan Ramon Jimenez, a great Spanish 20th century poet. And it expresses what happened that day, that night. Jimenez says, "I have a feeling my boat has struck down there in the depths against a great thing. And nothing happens. Nothing. Silence, waves, nothing. Nothing happens? Or has everything happened? And you're standing now, quietly, in the new life." So I just want to show you a little film to put some pictures to these words, give you a little, at least a haiku version. It's only 6 minutes long, of what my wife and I have been up to these last 10 years. But I want to add one thing, and that is this film is 1.5 years old, and since then we've started a new project. We go to Mumbai, India, every 3 months, and we spend 2 weeks in the red light slums of Mumbai. We have 14 children there, teenagers, that we're training to become magicians. All of their moms are sexually trafficked slaves in the brutal, brutal brothels of Mumbai. These kids are becoming amazing magicians. And 70% of them will end up in the sex trade without some kind of support or guidance, and we're giving them a way out of that unspeakable life in many ways they've been born into. And with a 1,000-year tradition of performance magic, a rising economy, 20,000 people, and growing connections with magicians and businessmen, these kids are going to make a wonderful living in Mumbai. So here's a little 6-minute something.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, like that, and 1, 2, 3.
Houdini once said, "When I escape from my impossible situation, I think I inspire hope that the impossible is possible." My name is Tom Verner, and I'm a magician. 7 or 8 years ago, I started an organization called Magicians Without Borders. I started Magicians Without Borders because I think magic is a wonderful way of bringing joy and happiness and hope to refugee and orphan children around the world. And they tend to be many of the most forgotten.
Tom has such a wonderful gift with people, but children in particular, because he knows how to connect with them.
I think a really wonderful part of this work is the fact that I get to do it together with my wife, Janet.
My stage name is La Fleur. A big part of what I do is before the show. I go out and do silly handshakes and improvise, play with the kids, and they're kind of warmed up.
We do three things. We have the shows we do in refugee camps and orphanages. 25 countries, Somalia, Ethiopia, Sudan, all the countries of the former Yugoslavia, Thailand after the tsunami, Burma, and an Afghan refugee camp on the Iran-Afghan border. We were asked to create a magic show to teach refugee children about HIV. And we did that show for 150,000 refugees in West Africa. So the third thing we're doing is now going regularly to El Salvador, and we're working with a group of kids there, training them to become magicians.
A lot of the people that we perform for have very little. Many of them have lost their homes, lost a limb, and they've got a lot of reason to, I think, despair that they can never have what they've lost again. I really do believe that laughter heals.
Magic in a wild way is sort of filled with metaphors of hope. You take a rope, you cut it in half, and you put it back together again. We take a piece of paper and tear it into many pieces, and it comes back into this 40-foot streamer of color. The folks we perform for, their lives seem very impossible to them. I try to inspire them to look at magic as something other than just tricks or just amusement and amazement, but that it can awaken a sense of hope that all of a sudden the impossible seems possible.
Ready, 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 ready. Okay. 1, 2, 3.
So I feel that we're citizen diplomats, and that feels like a very important thing to do in the world at this time.
Magic is a universal language. I don't speak Burmese, I don't speak Hindi or Arabic, but I do speak magic. And all children around the world speak magic. They all get it. Magicians only do three things, whether they're Chinese, Indian, African, European, South American. They make things appear, they make things disappear, and they make things change. They do it in 1,000 different ways. But magic is universal, and everyone understands it. I don't have to say a word.
I am a pilgrim and a stranger, traveling through this worrisome land. And I've got a home in that yonder city, and it's not, good Lord, it's not.
Okay, one more short little story and a piece of magic. A couple of days after Katrina hit New Orleans, my wife and I got into our old beat-up Subaru, the Vermont state car, and we headed south to do some magic in the shelters. And our first stop was Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and we were directed to go over to the Schuyler Boulevard Baptist Church. We pull into the church parking lot, and coming out of the church and down the sidewalk are 400 black people. Some of them fainting and being taken away in ambulances. It was already 100 degrees. They had been there since 4 o'clock that morning. And we're walking toward the church hall, and I have to say I have never been so frightened before a magic performance. I also was feeling a little foolish. I was kind of having a crisis of faith about magic. these people had lost everything, and I'm going to go in there and show them magic tricks. It seemed almost obscene a little bit. And I also felt very white. So we walk into the church hall, and we find ourselves in a corridor, and there's 70 people sitting there, sad, silent, sullen, angry people. And I go up to a little kid, a little 6-year-old, and I hand him a red sponge bowl. And he takes it, looks at it, and I put it in his hand, and I say, now go woo over your hand. And he opens it, and there's 2 of them. He hits his mom. He says, Mom, look what I just did. And I step back. Now I'm performing for about 6, then 10. In half an hour, I'm standing in the middle of the room. I was doing the linking rings, talking about communities coming together, falling apart. And then I held up a piece of paper. And I said, imagine this was your life. It was a good life. You had friends, family, work, school, a home, a community. And then Katrina came, and you lost your friends, some of you. Some of you lost family. Some of you lost your work, your school. All of you lost your homes. And now you're going to lose months and months, maybe years, living in trailers and shelters. But maybe, just maybe, your life will come back together again, and you'll go home. So the room is now alive. Some people are yelling, they're standing on their feet, and they're looking at my hand as if it matters. It's amazing. So they all went, woo! And I pull this out. Oh. Well, it's not going to happen quickly. Go back in. Okay, one more time. Woo! Ah, I forgot something. Now, in the Bible, in the book of Psalms, it says their suffering was like bread. It made them stronger. So maybe, just maybe, when you go back home, your life's not going to be the same. But just maybe, because of all this suffering, your life is going to be stronger and more beautiful. Like this. People are on their feet, screaming, applauding. The room was alive in some new way. So, in some circumstances, magic not only amazes and amuses, but it can awaken hope that the impossible is possible. So, thank you very much.